Partnership. My name is Catherine Davis. I am leading this year's conference media program. Before I turn the conference over to our colleague Sanam Beton from the Ouagadougou Partnership, I want to ensure that all of our media guests are set up for language interpretation. This session will be conducted in English and French and available for simultaneous interpretation. Can we show the QR code? There we go, wonderful. There's a QR code, and maybe Sanam, maybe I'll invite you to say this in French too. There's a QR code on the monitor that if you use that, you can choose English or French, and it will be interpreted throughout the entire session. And I will let, sorry? Devices, we need to use your own headset. If someone does not have a headset, we have a few extra, but we invite everyone to use their headset for their phone and to listen. For instance, I have one in my ear right now, and I am set up on the English channel. Would you like to share in French in case they
Oui. Bonjour. Alors donc pour la traduction, ce que vous avez à faire, c'est de scanner le code qui est là. Comme ça, vous aurez la traduction du français en anglais et de l'anglais en français. Et je pense que vous avez des écouteurs pour suivre. Ceux qui n'ont pas d'écouteurs, il y a quelques écouteurs disponibles. Merci.
Does anyone have any questions about the interpretation process? Everyone's set up? So after the news conference, we have copies of the press release for the news conference, both in English and French, available over there on the media materials table. I'm going to invite, we're going to introduce each of the speakers, and they will each be making a short statement, and then we will open the session up to questions from our registered media. If you're in the room, please raise your hand and we will call on you. We invite you to stand and state your name and outlet, and then preface your question with the speaker you're addressing, or speakers you're addressing, and feel free to ask your question in English or in French. If you're attending virtually, there is a link in the media advisory where you can submit your questions in real time. My colleague Sarah Sparks will be monitoring the virtual questions and bringing them into the room for discussion. Now I would like to introduce Sanam Beton from Ouagadougou Partnership to introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Merci. Bonsoir, mesdames, messieurs, les journalistes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear journalists. It's my pleasure to introduce this distinguished panel. My name is Sanam Beton. I am the Executive Director of eTry Labs, an innovation hub in West Africa. And we've been working with the Ouagadougou Partnership for about 10 years now, counting. And so I have the privilege to introduce the guest today. First, I have Marie Ba. Marie Ba is the director of the Ouagadougou Partnership Coordination Unit. She is going to talk to you about the partnership, how it started, who are the members, what is achieved to date, and where it's going for the next 10 years. Marie?
Okay. Ok. Je vais m'exprimer en français. S'il y en a qui ont besoin de Ouagadougou, il faut savoir que les 9 pays dont on parle sont relativement petits en termes de poids démographique, en termes de taille, mais ce qu'il faut aussi constater.
In 2011, when the partnership was set up, there was a need of repositioning family planning and spinning up progress as family planning. It's also an area where there were less financial support in comparison with Southern Africa and English-speaking Africa. So we wanted to raise the contribution of the different financial support of the countries. So this partnership, speaking about the achievements, we're very proud of the movement we have set up. It is led by the 9 Ministry of Health of the member states, with the support of the civil society and the youth and the religious leaders, and also technical and financial partners such as UNFP, and they're present, and silent partners, Bill and Melinda Gates, for instance, Foundation, UNFPA, Canada, the Netherlands Corporation, British Corporation, among other partners. And speaking about achievements, I can let you know about the fact that we've gone beyond our objectives in both phases. The first one, 1 million female users of contraception unions, and 2 million for the second phase, and we've gone further. We have gone further the contraceptive prevalence levels. Then we also have to take due note that between 1990 and 2011, there was 2.9 million additional users of modern contraceptive methods. And since we set up the partner, 4.1 million new users, with the ambition of reaching 6.5 between today and 2030. Regarding financial support of silent partners, we went from $110 million in 2012 to a little bit more than $205 million. So a raise in 100%, and also a reference showing the interest of our countries in SRH multiplied by 2 the financial support of our countries. One of the major achievements, 2 of them, each year we have had more young people involved in the support of the Ouagadougou partnership. We saw that in the opening ceremony, and more inclusive regarding the support of young people as agents for change. A second point, the increasing involvement of local authorities, health and political authorities, for them to think that family planning is a priority. And instead of speaking of spacing, we speak about family planning, reproductive health, and right to reproductive health. And we hope that this narrative will go on in the coming years. And we acknowledge more and more the connection between family planning and regarding health impact, connection with education of girls education to women in family planning. And I'll give the floor to my colleague who will tell you about the transition after the intervention of Dr. Tenaro from Niger. The situation in Niger is very interesting for us because we wanted to stress the situation there, taking into account that they will host the annual meeting of the Ouagadougou partner between the 12th and the 15th of December in the city of Niamey. So, as Mary said, the Ouagadougou partnership gathers 9 French-speaking countries: Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Senegal, and Togo. And one of the countries represented by the health director of the director of health and child care, Dr. Aru, your turn. Thank you. It's an honor for me. Thank you for inviting me to take the floor in this international conference and to be present in this press conference and to share the viewpoint of my government regarding the activities of the Ouagadougou Partnership. Our country is one of the poorest countries. When you see the human development index, and on the other hand, we've got the higher rate of fertility in the world, 7.6 in 2012. In 2012, only 3 million, and in 2021, there are 25 million others. That tells a lot. The government makes a lot of efforts economically, a growth with 6%, and the demography, very high speed, all the efforts enter development in poverty. On the other hand, we've got infantile and mother's mortality rates around 6%, which is a lot. The rate of contraceptive prevalence around 12% in 2012. So you can understand all the demographic challenges that we are faced with. So the commitment of the higher authorities, beginning with our president, supporting the regional commitment in the framework of the Ouagadougou Partnership very quickly, our authorities translated them into concrete actions. They revised the decrees regarding the implementation of the law on reproduction. Also, the family planning should be implemented, self-care with self-injection, to go from condoms to pills to self-injection. Much work has been done from the legal point of view, but also from the political point of view, with the creation of a national directorate of family planning and a general directorate of people's health and care. and directly under the supervision of the presidency in order to have a viewpoint regarding all the demographic issues connected with the development of our country. We also have programming documents, the national policy 2019-2035, also family planning, second generation of this plan, and of course the plan for the transition to a wider scale. And the results, some results have been achieved, because we must say that we've added, since the beginning of this partnership, 450,000 new users. And it's very important to us, and it's allowed us to feel a decrease of fertility since 2021, when we started a study on fertility. We went to 6.2, so a nice trend, and the authorities are committed on a daily basis. On the other hand, as you may know, we have one of the highest rates of children's wedding. So the president is in charge of that. And in 2021 summit, gathering traditional chiefs was organized. They are keepers of our traditions, and we decided then to start acting on this trend and reducing fertility. Education was also one of the essential priorities for the President of the Republic, and education of boys and girls, because if a girl doesn't attend school very soon, she gets married. So we set up second grade education institutions for girls in order to help us regulate early wedding for girls, and also working on fertility. So, and we are happy to be supported by
Dr. Aru, thanks very much. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Amour Dieudonné Voudouhessi, a young leader from Benin, and he is going about the place of youth in meeting the OP objectives. As you know, over 60% of the population of our region is under 25. And we see young people as agents, not just beneficiaries. So, Amour, à toi la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir à tous. Je suis Amour.
My name is Amour Dieudonné Voudouhessi. I'm the president of the movement of Youth Action in Benin and a member of the youth think tank of the Ouagadougou Partnership. I want to salute the director of the Ouagadougou Partnership, who does it all in order for young people to be at the center of this movement. And my presence here justifies all the activity of the Ouagadougou Partnership and the commitment of young people. So we know that young people make more than 60% of the African peoples, and in each country, in each member state of the Ouagadougou Partnership, we know that the young people are the most affected by the Sustainable Development Action, and this justifies the fact that all the initiatives and the decisions that are taken must be centered on young people, whatever the programs. So in order to bring about all the change, young people have to have reinforced capacities in order to induce this change. And the change demands that young people went from targets to partners. And this coordination unit should give the young people a better place. Between 2011 and 2020, the young people have been involved in each action of the Ouagadougou Partnership, and this partnership has a new vision of reaching 12 million of users of contraceptive methods, and the role of young people has been revised, has been changed thanks to this process. And all the action of the partnership in order to bring about young people as actors in this process has been translated into actual actions in, among other things, the action of the young people. In this strategy aims at involving young people in all activities, to educate them and to share this vision. And the partnership's vision is shared by the young people, and we, actors of change, will work in order to facilitate access to quality information regarding family planning and sexual and reproductive health. And young people involved in this partnership are very proud of the activities led by the partnership, and we acknowledge this movement as a movement improving the situation of young people. Benin has committed in different ways specific commitments connected with young people. State contribution for buying contraceptive units, to have a free family planning, to reduce the, to better manage the stocks. Benin has also worked in order for contraceptive prevalence could be increased. So between now and 2030, we have faith in the Ouagadougou Partnership, and we will go on advocating in order to reach the objectives for 2030. Thanks a lot, Amo. And now my honor is to introduce Argentino Matawe, who is the Director of Western and Central Africa.
At the country level, supplies as well. Actually supplies an essential percentage of modern contraceptives used in Ouagadougou Partnership countries. And so Argentina will discuss the role in helping the Ouagadougou Partnership meet its goal and other topics that she would like to discuss.
Thank you, Sanam, and it's a great honor to be close to the key players nowadays in this whole discussion of family planning in Western Central Africa, but especially in the 9 countries of the Ouagadougou Partnership. For the UN Population Fund, a multilateral and human rights-based agency, our role is really very clear. It is to help and remind member states, the governments, to honor the obligations that they signed internationally. You know that it's very fast, the signature, but then the implementation back home, and that's where UNFPA, with its presence in more than 150 countries. We have a footprint with full offices. It makes it easier for us to then work with those governments, reminding them of the obligations, because when they come back home, they are faced with a multitude of other priorities, and our role is to, keep that reminder on. And it's to help them after reminding providing technical assistance for policies that will facilitate the implementation of those treaties, the standards and operational plans, but then implementation itself. We also press and advocate continually for the allocation of resources for the areas or the things for which they have promised their citizens and the world. In this case, they promised that they would have universal access to family planning to all their women and girls, but also to young men like Amour here next to me. And so between the promise and the product, they need to allocate resources, and our job is really to also help them remember that. We're looking more and more into issues of national ownership, and that's where our support to the Ouagadougou Partnership becomes important, because the Ouagadougou Partnership is that expression of governments from those 9 countries saying, we are committed, we want to do it ourselves, but we still need you, UNFPA, to support us. And so we support the Ouagadougou Partnership, and our friend Mariba, the executive director of the OP, has brought a new impetus, new life into this partnership. We also, in that national ownership, on the one hand supporting government, we also support civil society organizations and movements, and especially now for family planning, the movement of young people like that of Andre and others, to really be able to raise their voices, reclaim their rights, but also to help in the mobilization of communities, because we're dealing with an issue that requires change in mindset, a change in culture. And so it is the communities themselves and advocates within the communities that can best help communities understand and move towards more modern attitudes that will help them in their development. UNFPA just launched today, our executive director, Dr. Natalia Kanem, launched today a new family planning strategy, and that brings 2 major important components. One is that family planning moves, we want it to be seen beyond just access to contraceptives. It's really an issue of a right of a woman and a girl on a young man to say, I'm not ready to have children today, I will postpone, and therefore I need a modern method of contraception. The right of a woman and a girl to own her body. Because in many societies today, everybody else owns your body, tells you when to get married, forces you to get married. Everybody's up to get to you, to the young girl, when are you having children? You are married like barely 60 days. Everybody's already looking at you funny. So is it coming? Is it the baby? It's all about really owning that. So it's an issue of the right of that girl, of that woman, to own what she does with her body, but not just them, everybody for that matter. And we also emphasizing in the ownership, the move from dependence on the aid and donor support to domestic financing, putting your money where your mouth is. If you want to know what's important for anyone, just look at their budget expenditure. What's on the top? What's at top, right? So we're working with governments to remind them that actually to walk the talk, they need to put the money where their mouth is in their treaties and things. So this strategy on family planning really responds to the UNFPA strategic plan for the next 5 years, which wants to expand partnerships, deepen the existing partnerships with our donors, because we still need that support. Even as we gradually move to self-reliance for domestic resources, we still need our donors to support. But it's also to forge new partnerships, give more importance to women collectives, to youth collectives, to do exactly what I've done. So I'll stop there for now, and maybe later on during the question and answer session, we can expand more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Argentina. And now I have the pleasure to introduce Perry Sutton, who is Senior Program Officer at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, one of the key and founding members of this partnership, and a strong supporter of the Ouagadougou Partnership and its coordination unit. Perry?
Thank you so much, Sanam, and thank you to everybody who's taken the time to be here and hear this story. It's an important one. It's a total privilege to be sharing the table here with these colleagues. So thank you for your remarks. I wanted to kind of reflect on the beginning of the Ouagadougou Partnership and what this landscape looked like when this movement was born. We gathered in Ouagadougou, and a declaration was made, and commitments were made to family planning and to changing the course of history in this region at that meeting. When the donors who were present turned to the national leaders and asked, what do you need funding for? How can we contribute to this movement in the most effective way? It was clear that these countries at that time didn't have national strategic plans for family planning. There weren't national priorities to anchor our funding to come together and support it. And you know, going from over 10 years ago to today, all 9 Ouagadougou Partnership countries are on their second, some working on their 3rd generation national strategic plans for family planning. And this is the place where countries are expressing their priorities and coming to the donors to say, look, align your funding against what we want to do. And it's one of the more important features of this movement. It's what enables us as donors to be much better at coordinated and aligned with national leaderships and priorities. So the Ouagadougou Partnership advocates for increased domestic and donor financing. Both at this stage are necessary to continue to advance access to quality information and services for family planning. We also, as a partnership, work together to enable better use of existing financing. So this is done with those costed implementation plans at the center, and we're able to not only find opportunities for collaboration, it makes visible, these national plans make visible where the gaps in funding are, so that we can better address them. We're reducing duplication of effort. When you can align multiple programs funded from multiple sources around national priorities and programs, you can achieve much more than if we're going at this one by one. And I have 3 examples of how this is playing out. First, at the country level, Ouagadougou Partnership supported funding analyses have enabled us to see, for example, data for monitoring and evaluation of FP programs and progress and needs is consistently an underfunded priority for countries. For the Gates Foundation, this speaks to one of our comparative advantages in this space. And so we've been able, with that analysis and understanding, to prioritize funding for data analysis at the country level. There's a program called Track 20 that's supporting the M&E officers in the National Reproductive Health Program offices to improve upon kind of the understanding of what the existing data is telling us. And then additionally, we're working to improve access to survey quality data, to keep our finger on the pulse of how things are changing and how we need to evolve programs and the support that we're providing for those through a mechanism known as PMA. It exists in 3 countries. We would like to work with other donors and make it accessible to all 9 countries where there's an interest in having access to more frequent, reliable data about the population and family planning. At a regional level, the Ouagadougou Partnership makes visible which countries are kind of known to be more like relative donor darlings and which countries are consistently receiving less support from the donor community. And the Gates Foundation has been able to respond to this information by shifting our strategy away from a strategy that was supporting just 2 countries primarily in the region, plus support to the coordination unit. We've evolved to be funding opportunities that are accessible to all 9 countries to try to reduce this reality that there are countries that just consistently don't have access to the same level of resources. Finally, at a global level, and ICFP is such a perfect example of this, the Ouagadougou Partnership is providing visibility. Its members are influencing and engaging in new ways at a global level in ways that we just didn't see previously. There has never before been an ICFP with stronger Francophone African participation. At the opening ceremony last night, I can't tell you how proud I was to see Ren, one of our youth leads, up on stage delivering her remarks in French. It was the most impassioned set of remarks that we saw at the entire opening ceremony. And even Anglophone participants who didn't have headsets, who don't understand much French at all, they were sharing with me that her speech touched them. Like, this is so important. It's so important that Francophone Africa is better represented and able to share everything that we have to offer with the global community, and the Ouagadougou Partnership is enabling that. Finally, I want to say that the Ouagadougou Partnership's ability first to have created this movement for family planning in the region, and then to have been able to actually accelerate progress. You can see it in the data. It's progress that's more impressive than in other regions of the world over the past decade. And also our ability as a partnership to demonstrate a new way of doing business, of partnering together, of leveraging our network in order to achieve more, makes our investment in the Ouagadougou Partnership Coordination Unit that Marie Ba leads and that everybody is relying upon, one of the most important investments that our family planning team makes. And again, like, what a privilege to have been able to engage in this and learn from it since the very beginning. Looking forward, we're really excited to continue not only to support the coordination unit, but to support the movement in new ways. And just earlier this week, as an example of how we're doing that, we put a new grant agreement in place for the OP Women's Leadership Accelerator. This is going to be an opportunity for young women from throughout the region to develop their leadership skills and to promote their accessibility into the movement as leaders. We want to build their skills and employ them to continue to drive this movement and be at those decision-making tables. We're also very proud of a relative new investment that's through the coordination unit to drive an OP regional research agenda and to ensure that West African research institutes have more resources, have opportunities to network, and align the research that they're doing with the priorities that are set by national leadership. So, you know, in closing, I just want to say that in this region that on a per capita basis receives a fraction of the donor support that the Anglophone African sub-Saharan countries receive, we're seeing even greater progress. And it's because of the leadership of these individuals and their peers from throughout the region, and you know, the sky's the limit as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Perry. That was inspiring. And thank you to all of our featured speakers today. I'd like to open the floor now to questions from members of the media. I'd like to open it first to our on-site media that are in the room. Feel free to raise your hand and then please stand. Adama. Excuse us while we get the mic working. We want to hear Adama.
C'est Adama Diouf, je suis journaliste à l'agence de presse sénégalaise APS Sénégal. Donc, vu les résultats présentés par l'unité de coordination du partenariat de Ouagadougou, on voit que des résultats probants ont été obtenus et même des lois ont été votées dans certains pays pour promouvoir la santé sexuelle et reproductive. Mais aujourd'hui, vous parlez d'une nouvelle vision et des objectifs pour 2030. Mais comment vous travaillez avec le niveau national, comme au Sénégal, avec la direction de la santé de la mère et de l'enfant, pour arriver à obtenir les résultats? On voit que dans les pays, ce n'est pas le même contexte. Vous avez parlé d'un taux de prévalence contraceptive allant de 12 à 30% dans certains pays. Je crois qu'au Sénégal, on est un peu à 25%. Et comment faire pour on ne peut pas niveler, c'est sûr, mais vous êtes un partenariat et vous voulez que les pays arrivent en même temps en 2030 avec des taux de prévalence.
Also for financing, the UNFP has made a compact to have to go further on resources. Can I ask you if in the partnership, are you do you want to do it to get more contraceptive product?
Go ahead, Marie.
Ok. Merci beaucoup à Adama pour la question. C'est vrai qu'on travaille beaucoup avec les directeurs santé mère-enfant et on va dire dans les 3 dernières années, l'implication des directeurs santé mère-enfant dans certains pays, par exemple pour le Niger, c'est la direction générale pour la population et la santé de la reproduction. Leur implication dans le partenariat de Ouagadougou et dans le mouvement a augmenté. Donc même la part des financements que l'UCPO attribue à ces directions-là et ces ministères de la Santé pour la coordination a beaucoup augmenté. Donc, d'une part, c'est pour les aider justement dans ces plans d'action nationaux budgétisés dont Perry a parlé, qui sont financement domestique pour l'achat des contraceptifs. Il y a d'autres domaines, je pense, dans lesquels nous
Non, non, bah c'est...
veut rajouter.
Adama, je peux parler en anglais? Okay, just to complement what Marie was saying on the financing, since you asked, there are two initiatives that UNFPA has initiated and which countries seem to be embracing more and more. We have what we call a compact. And under that compact that countries have committed to signing up to the end of this year, and we're having more and more countries sign, our country representatives in the different countries are working hard to get those compacts signed. And that compact tells the country that UNFPA is supplying most of the contraceptives, right? They are committing to putting between 1 and 10% of their funds towards the contraceptives that they consume, so that we can then provide more contraceptives to others who might need more or less. So if we are providing 2 million or 20 million, 10% of that, between 1 and 10%, the countries are committing to put themselves. And then the second initiative is what we're calling the matching grant. In addition to the compact, the matching grant says that for every dollar that a country will put towards its contraceptives, UNFPA will put 2, meaning that we'll provide more in order, because what we're providing right now is actually not meeting the total need in countries. USAID is the other biggest donor in terms of contraceptives, and we working together in the quantification of what is needed in the country, and we haven't gotten quite the figure in many countries. So we're working more and more in the costing plans that, for example, our colleague from BMGF has spoken about. We're doing investment cases so countries get, understand the value of investing in family planning in relation to their other goals, like roads or increasing the economy. What family planning would contribute to that through the investment cases they're able to see. And so the matching grants and the compact together seem to be very promising right now. So we're very excited about that. So it's just we're looking into more and more innovative ways to get them to put the money where really it matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie, in Argentina.
Merci. Je voudrais ajouter quand même quelque chose. Comment nous travaillons? C'est vrai que nous sommes le point focal gouvernement. Moi, j'en suis un. D'autres collègues sont actuellement à cette conférence-là. Mais il y a d'autres points focaux. Les points focaux partenaires techniques et financiers au niveau de chacun de ces pays-là. Il y a des points focaux également organisation de la société civile et le point focal jeunes. Donc nous sommes une équipe dans le pays et cette équipe de points focaux travaille également avec les comités techniques de suivi de la mise en œuvre du plan PF que nous avons dans nos pays. Donc c'est pour vous dire que nous travaillons en équipe et de l'autre côté, elle a bien parlé de partage d'expérience. À travers le partenariat du Ouagadougou, nous faisons aussi des voyages d'études. Nous en avons fait un en Côte d'Ivoire pour voir comment ça marche et donc pour aller mettre ça dans notre pays. Il y a des réunions comme fait également des réunions de partage d'expérience, mais nous partageons également en ligne. Et j'avoue que le partenariat nous pousse également dans l'élaboration de nos documents stratégiques, le PNB dont on parle, sur le partenariat du Ouagadougou, qui a pris le consultant qui nous a aidés dans ce processus-là. Donc c'est pour vous dire que ça a vraiment aidé et on travaille vraiment d'un commun accord. Et récemment encore, le partenariat, on va dire, il s'est élargi parce qu'il y a un conseil d'administration et également il y a un conseil de recherche. Toujours au niveau de ces pays-là, il y a des représentants, ce qui fait que vraiment nous travaillons ensemble et nous avons une vision commune pour apporter chacun sa contribution en fonction, bien évidemment, de sa réalité dans le domaine de la planification familiale. Voilà ce que je voudrais ajouter à ce niveau-là. Merci.
Merci, Dr. Haru. I'd like to open the floor to additional questions. Does someone else have a question? Chioma. And please stand and state your name and the outlet you work for.
I quite, appreciate this new development concerning the compact agreement. Can you clarify more? Can you clarify more if the same amount of, the same 10% is the same for West African countries, English-speaking countries, in terms of their contribution to support the family planning. Same also for the $1 per $2. Can you, give more details about this compact agreement, this new compact agreement, and how it's going to work to help to boost family planning access and uptake?
Okay, thank you for the question. As I was saying, the compact is simply saying to a country, UNFPA is providing you $2 million worth of contraceptives, and probably USAID is paying so much, other players, but still you have a certain gap. So by signing the compact in which you commit to paying between 1 and 10% of the cost of the contraceptives provided by UNFPA, the amount that you will be paying, that means that it will release funds from the 2 million, which we can then plow back again to continually go towards closing the gap, right? So they pay, let's say 10%, 200,000, but the gap was 500,000. So we will close the gap by 200,000 because the government has given more money, which we then add to the contraceptives that we are buying for them. So it becomes 2.2 million as opposed to 2 million only. In addition to that, for every dollar that they put, let's say the 200,000 that they've put, we will put 400,000. So increasingly we go towards trying to close the gap. Some are starting timidly at 1%, others are starting at 10. Those who were already at 12 are putting 15, but the goal is that as soon as possible to at least get to 10%, because you would be surprised, or maybe not so surprised, that some countries put 0 to family planning, and they talk in their speeches about women's empowerment. So how does it go together? You empower a woman, and yet she is stuck at home with a pregnancy every year. So it just didn't make 1 + 1. But some countries are starting to see the light. One example is Niger, but not only. We see many countries in the region now awakening. I think that they have heard so much. The CD, now we talk CD, it's no longer CD. The streamed music of saying West Africa is behind, West Africa is this, West Africa is that, that finally the new generation of leaders, whether you still have the same president or not, but there is some new leaders inside the government who are now finally saying enough. We want to change. Why is it that our communities are lagging behind? So they're finally understanding the importance of family planning for that woman, for that girl, but then the contribution of that woman and that girl to the total economy and goals that they want to have. So we're seeing that awakening, which is really exciting and encouraging. But yes, it's the same for the whole world. The compact, we couldn't just do, separate for although some countries in Asia that cover fully their family planning. And it's no surprise why they are moving far ahead, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina. I know we're getting close to time, but we do have a question from our virtual audience member that I'd like to present to the group. It's about the Ouagadougou partnership. I'll present it to Marie and then invite any other speakers to answer as well. Are all the countries performing equally well? If not, what accounts for the success for some countries, and how can you help underperforming countries to catch up?
So performing equally well, no, because it's also the contexts are different. It is the same, some of the, I should answer this in English? Okay. Some of the socio-economic context is the same, but they have very specific issues that make them very unique. And so we work with them recognizing that context, but also taking into account their specificities. And so from the beginning, they didn't have, let's say at the start in 2011, they weren't all at the same, going at the same pace for one, and starting from the same, at the same level. And so obviously now in 2022, we've seen some have been able to catch up, and that's the story of Mali and Niger, and others have had, you know, either cycles of humanitarian crisis, political instability. There's also very much high turnover in the ministries of health, which has been an impediment to some of the progress that we've seen. There's been varying levels of local leadership on whether family planning or sexual reproductive health should be a priority. Very often within the Ministry of Health, whether it's for budgetary reasons or just making policies, whether to allocate those funding or those resources to family planning, they tended to go to malaria or HIV. So there's been competition even within the Ministry of Health and then outside, because the Ministry of Health and the health sector is competing with the Ministry of Interior for, you know, defense mechanisms. We know the whole region is being destabilized these recent years. So that's another factor in terms of why some countries are performing better or not. To me, honestly, the secret sauce to all of it is local leadership. Any country where local leadership has been strong, and for some of them it's been getting stronger and stronger, you've seen the progress in terms of increased financial resources for family planning, increased support for advocates for family planning, and taking the discourse and the dialogue about family planning needs for women to a whole new direction. So there are other factors, there are other barriers, socio-economic, religious factors also are in our region. We have very strong opinions, or one side or another, on whether family planning should be a priority, should it be advocated and allowed for women outside of marriage, for example, and that's where you have very strong points of view from different religious leaders, whether it's of Muslim faith or of Christian faith. They have very varying opinions, and so those are most of the factors that are coming into play as to whether a country has been performing better or not. Je ne sais pas s'il y en a d'autres qui veulent rajouter par rapport à, par exemple, Dr Harou, pourquoi certains pays arrivent un peu mieux à atteindre leurs objectifs et d'autres non. Et le cas du Niger, donc, que j'expliquais, qui pendant plusieurs années n'a pas atteint, mais depuis les 3 dernières années, le leadership politique a fait une énorme différence justement dans l'atteinte des objectifs et du nombre d'utilisatrices additionnelles.
Ouais, merci. Effectivement, pour atteindre les résultats, on a besoin d'une volonté politique forte. C'est d'abord ça. Parce que nous savons que la planification familiale dans notre contexte, elle a un versant socio-culturel qui est un petit peu compliqué, et sur lequel il faut, on peut dire les mots, il faut marcher sur les yeux. Mais quand on a le leadership, effectivement, on arrive à mettre ensemble, y compris les religieux, et c'est ce qui s'est passé un peu chez nous. Il y a justement un partenariat avec ces chefs religieux et les chefs coutumiers autour de cette question essentielle. Et à partir du moment où il y a cet engagement des acteurs communs, eh bien le reste va suivre. Le reste, parce que le reste c'est la communauté, c'est la société civile qui est autour, qui est de toutes les façons déjà engagée. L'autre aspect important, justement, c'est la société civile. Il faut une société civile forte, engagée, et avec une redevabilité, justement, vis-à-vis des communautés, vis-à-vis des populations. Et c'est ce qui fait, justement, certains pays, avec le leadership qu'ils ont des autorités, arrivent à avoir des bien meilleurs résultats. C'est ce que je peux dire, mais ces résultats sont bien évidemment nuancés quand on regarde dans l'espace. Et c'est pourquoi justement il y a cet espace-là pour apprendre les uns des autres, mais tout en tenant compte de nos propres réalités. Voilà ce que je pourrais ajouter sur ce que déjà m'a dit cité.
Thanks. I think the question of the political willing, it's in the center of what we do, and we see that each government comes with this priority. Our governments commit themselves at the regional level and the national level, but the way to implement these engagements, it's also a problem. And here we see that the way in which country does it is different. We see that there is a political willing, and there is also a pressure in the different ministries. When we see the political leadership, each ministry wants to consolidate his own politic or his own actions. The technical level pose also some problems. At Benin, we see that some improvements because the priority we saw that priorities are not individual. We also have the parliament that try to defend the government, the president. So politics are there, but we have to change this. We have to change this with and everything. I mean, this is a problem, and this has to. We all of us have to acknowledge the vision of the state, and I think the objectives depends on the youth implication. If we see if youth is implicated, and when they do a lobbying, we see that the political are have to work further. Thank you. Thank you. For me, I wanted to add a comment, giving you an example, speaking about political willing. We need a social society, strong social society that can do monitoring and include all the actors in the family planning. I want to give you an example in sexual education. For example, in Burkina Faso, at one moment, it was said that we had made some improvements in sexual education, but with the social society and with workshops and new engagement, we saw that there was no consensus regarding sexual education. For example, the term was a problem and content was also a problem. But as we had the principles of UNESCO, because each country had the capacity to adapt the question of sexual education to the social, cultural reality of the country, with the monitoring of the social society, we could make a mobilization, and we include all the different actors, including religious actors, to proceed to a revision of the content of sexual education.
Just a comment with an example to political commitment, and also the civil society strongly and work to inclusivity.
Okay.
Yeah, it is just a comment briefly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, because
Yeah.
we're running out of time for the press
Okay.
conference. But thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Merci.
And I think Victoria has one last question.
Victoria Rubadiri from Royal Media Services in Nairobi. Very quick question. So when you look at the funding landscape, it's shrinking right now. You also talked about how political buy-in is quite a challenge. So when you look at that as the backdrop, how does it affect the efforts in driving family planning in terms of making it a huge agenda for governments, and also getting that political buy-in as well when you're looking at driving the number of users on contraceptives? I think it's 15 or 16 million by 2030, is that the goal? 13 million? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So how do you kind of get it to that area with funding being an issue and the political buy-in being an issue as well? Thank you.
So on the funding, like you said, the landscape is getting smaller and smaller. But as we said, for the Ouagadougou partnership countries, I think I was mentioning from 2012 and now the contributions and the funding, the investments has doubled. But it's it's sometimes a smaller number of donors, and that's where we think it's critical to increase the political commitment in country, but also domestic funding. So that has increased as well in terms of domestic funding. But I think, like we said, if we look at countries, for example, like Niger or other countries that were lagging behind, the importance now that they see in the indicators, even on the international scene, they took a lot of commitments that they need to uphold. Some are doing better than others, and all of them, for example, had this commitment of increasing the domestic funding for contraceptives. So that has steadily increased as well. And so, for example, for a country like Niger, when we went to a caravan a couple of years ago, this indicator on the Human Development Index, where Niger was usually around some of the last countries, they really want to change that indicator, and they have to, their leverage is going to be on maternal and child health. So yes, it's looking grim, but the rate of increase has slowed down. That we have to be extremely honest about it. But we're still surpassing our objectives. At least in the past 2 to 3 years, you would have thought that with COVID and the pandemic and the security and humanitarian crisis that our region is going through, we're still surpassing our objectives, even though the rate of increase has slowed down significantly in countries. So we're looking at new innovative ways, and inclusion of youth in the advocacy, in the policy and decision making is also going to be extremely important. And as Amour was saying, pressure, for example, in passing that new law in Benin, the advocacy that the youth were able to put in place was extremely important in getting that comprehensive and progressive law out of Benin. So there's hope. We know, because the objective is now more ambitious, that we have to get out of our business as usual. And I think what we've seen from donors is a willingness to try out new things and be more bold and adventurous with some of the investments that they've been making. And being more aggressive domestically as well. And like we said, in terms of that political commitment and political discourse that we've been having, there's been a lot more courage in terms of talking of not just family planning, but sexual reproductive health and rights in general. If anyone.
Thank you.
And I think that your question, Victoria, just to complement, is that in this quest to move from the over reliance on the same traditional donors who are now battling, funding Iraq, the war in Ukraine, funding, not the war, but the effects of the war in Afghanistan and others. We're also trying to expand into new partnerships. For example, there's a huge amount of money in the international finance institutions, which was not traditionally going to sexual and reproductive health or family planning. And now you see the new strategy of the World Bank. It's squarely moving, shedding light onto the sexual and reproductive health, because they've now finally understood that this will have a multiplier effects on the other goals and so through these IFIs that provide all this money, we're also carving a place for the global financing facility. You have, for example, the private sector itself. You have these multinationals in countries. We're now trying to slowly but surely try to get the private sector also understand that it's actually beneficial to their long-term goals to fund this, but also the communities themselves. You have small communities that put money together to have a small pharmacy to distribute contraceptives. It's already a drop, but in the right direction. Thanks.
Perry, you wanted to answer?
Yeah, just to build on what Marie in Argentina said, this is such an important question you ask, and there isn't a simple answer, but I think in addition to what they've offered as strategies and things that we're trying, we need to get better. We need to break out of family planning silos and get smarter about accessing the broader set of donors and funding that is available for universal health coverage, that is available for primary health care, and ensure that family planning is an integral component of those larger programs that do have more financing. In the Ouagadougou Partnership region, every country has a costed action plan for integrating postpartum family planning into maternal, newborn, and nutrition interventions. And we need to make sure that the countries are able to take these plans to the decision makers, to their ministries of finance who are making decisions on budget allocation for programs. And bringing postpartum family planning as an example, as a standard offer for every woman who's coming into a facility to receive antenatal care and to deliver, you're going to have a lot of impact where that's done systematically and well.
And it's a better rationalization of the domestic resources. Ministries of Health, in our experience at UNFPA, return money to the Minister of Finance every year. It's that capacity to rationalize and spend judiciously. So our challenge as partners is really to also provide that kind of technical assistance of how to really, within the Ministry of Health itself, reallocate those funds for family planning. But then, as Perry says, other ministries as well, to understand that it's not a Ministry of Health issue alone. It's really every other ministry. Thank you.
Thank you, Argentina, and thank you all for this dynamic conversation. We've reached time for this news conference, but our speakers will be available for photos afterwards. And also, as a reminder, we do have copies of the media advisory in both English and French on the table to get you can get people's names, titles, and if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you very much, everyone. Sanam, did you? Yes, we'll be sharing digital assets for photos from this event available too. So again, feel free to look at the online newsroom or to email me at catherine@daviscom.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.